So walk me through the monetization of your brand.
First year, I think I made $200. Also, I spent many multiples, on equipment. It was a net loss. Year 2, I think I made about $10,000 from AdSense. Year 3, I started taking sponsorship money. The tail end of that, I had launched my first offer. So with all the sponsorship money and that first cohort launch, I made about $250,000.
Nice.
While I was still working at Amazon. That was the moment I realized, okay, because I had basically 10x'd my top line every year. And I was like, well, another 10x is just let's do it. It's not worth this job. And so that was the moment I decided to quit.
So what was your daily routine to actually create content on the side, run a business on the side, while also getting great reports in your day job while also managing a family?
I think the bar is on the floor when it comes to performance. I think that most people, if you ask them hey, do you have any free time? They would just say no. And then if you gave them an extra hour, they would just squander it. It would actually not make any difference to their quality of life. If you just focus for an hour or 2 hours every day, you will zoom past everybody. It's crazy.
Let's say you're talking to someone who's professional like you. Maybe they're a doctor, they're an engineer, they're a lawyer, they're an accountant, and they're middle of their career, they're maybe mid-30s or even 40s, and their desire is to kind of do what you did. What is those first 3 or 4 steps you'd recommend they do?
I used to think that when kids were hey, I want to be a streamer or a YouTuber when I grow up, I thought that was the stupidest thing in the entire world. And now it's it's smart. It's so smart because what you're doing is you're building distribution and a following. And then you can figure out your business after the fact. The question becomes how do you get big? It's just been a better time to launch a business. It just starts with
3, 2, 1, liftoff.
All right, thanks for doing this again.
Absolutely.
So tell me about the story of how you launched this channel. You launched your YouTube channel, Life Engineered, in 2021. You were, I think, 16 years in Amazon, give or take a year or two. So how did you come up with the idea? Why YouTube? What's the background there?
It's kind of funny. I was reading a tweet thread from Paul Millard, and it was they had 70 tweets in it. One of the tweets was the idea that starting a YouTube channel in 2020 is too late is going to be an absurd idea in 2030. I read that. I was like, oh, well, when you put it like that, that absolutely makes sense. Because I had been kicking around the idea of doing YouTube, but I was like, well, everybody that's big is already big. And I just thought it was going to be static like that. Now that I think about it, very few of the YouTubers that I was into in 2020 are still, at that level. Their content has changed quite a bit. And so I was like, okay, that gave me the sort of courage to take the first step. If I'm really honest, the reason I started the YouTube channel was there's this YouTuber called Tech Lead. And, he's another Asian dude that talks about, high level engineering stuff. He was a tech lead at Google or whatever. And I just wanted to be the positive version of Tech Lead, Not going to talk too much about him, but there's some behaviors on that side that I wasn't really a big fan of. And I'm like, why can't the world just have a positive version of his type of content? And so those two things together sort of launched the channel in early 2021.
Yeah, I like that line where it was in 2020 with Paul Millard. I also enjoy his content as well, funny enough. Mm-hmm. And how he said it's going to be absurd that 2020 is too late. I remember when I launched in the summer of 2020, so right around the same time period, people were telling me, dude, YouTube's saturated. It's never going to work out. You're never going to pass 10,000 subscribers. You should just quit, get a normal job, just do your normal thing. I think even in 2015, people were saying YouTube is saturated. It's never going to work out. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think probably that logic carries to 2025. I think there are, as you mentioned, every single month I find some new YouTubers blowing up. And the people from 2020 and 2015 who were big back then are actually not as relevant nowadays. So I think the arbitrage opportunity for content and getting good at it is forever there. The quality standard does keep going up. So funny enough, if you go back and watch a 2018 video, that kind of video usually wouldn't go viral today because so much more has been done. People are pouring so much more time and effort into content in general. Titles and thumbnails are infinitely better. The editing is way better, speaking is way better, strategy is way better. But I do think that if your goal is to be a creator, there's no better time than now to start.
Yeah, I do think that generally the quality has gone up, but I don't think it's strictly necessary for your content to explode. I think some of the most viral stuff is just somebody holding a camera up and just, talking to it and providing value to the viewer. Yeah, if you want to talk about, the production budget for Mr. Beast, it's obscene now. And, how much does he spend on a thumbnail? Probably
$100,000, honestly.
Probably getting close to that.
Yeah.
But, I do think that ultimately it's the underlying video content and the value that's provided by that video. That's the thing that you want to capture. And if you have something valuable to say, the production, is important. The packaging and concept is important. But ultimately that content is going to do really well.
My thoughts on this, and the more time I spend on the platform, really trying to understand what does well. So for context, I think we discussed this earlier. I don't really do any other platforms. LinkedIn is the big next one. I'm planning it's like a late summer thing for me, is that I'm going to explore LinkedIn, start working on that. Would love to speak to you more about that as well. But on YouTube especially, a rule I've noticed is that usually videos that blow up and do well are something that hasn't really been seen before, or it's done differently. So for example, your videos that have done super well in the past and recently, I think it's videos that, like you said, you're kind of like that positive, more advanced person in the industry. I don't think there was really anyone like that. Or even so, like, do you know if there's any other people who are making kind of like higher level software engineering content and giving advice?
Yeah, there are a couple.
My
buddy Rahul Pandey is.
No, that's a great example. Yeah.
There are a bunch of smaller ones. I think the ultimate reason is if you're a high level software engineer, you're making so much money just doing your craft. So it's just like, okay, cool. You're making a ton of money. What if I told you had to like take on a second job and then pour your energy into a bunch of skills that you don't have, and nobody's going to watch any of that content and you won't make any money? How does that sound to you? And I think most people would just be like, that sounds dumb, especially people that are really smart. And so I think that it takes a sort of special origin story. For me, it was COVID. I was working at Amazon on a part of Prime Video where we were doing live sports. So we would broadcast Premier League, NFL, that sort of stuff. And when COVID happened, nobody was doing live sports. I think there was like one Korean like baseball league that, they didn't shut down during the pandemic. But for the first time in my life, I had a bunch of free time. And I was like, okay, well, I can channel it into this YouTube stuff. But for the 15 or 14 years or whatever in my career at that point, I had never had multiple months where I didn't have to do anything, right? I think it sort of takes an exceptional like set of initial conditions. But, I think that's the reason why there aren't a ton of them. They're starting to pop up here or there, but when I think about content, I don't think about it like, we should be fighting over the slices of the pie. I think just the pie is big enough. We can just grow the pie. We can all, help each other. Like, I chat with and text with Rahul all the time, and we're like helping each other out, even though if you looked at it from the outside, we would be competitors. Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
I also think most creators, even in the same niche, have slightly different angles that they take with everything. So I don't know Rahul personally, would love to meet him at some point, but I think you're even like the business side of things, right? Like you're more on like the high ticket side. You're like helping people get promoted. He's more on like the low ticket kind of like self-paced courses side with Taro, right? Mm-hmm. So even though you're both making, content for a little bit of a similar audience, you're still like, going in slightly different areas. Usually you don't see two YouTubers with the exact same niche, the exact same offer, and the exact same audience. It's usually not a situation where it's commoditized, where they're going to pick one or the other. People are always different in that way. So I think I definitely agree that collaboration is inevitably like a way better approach than kind of like seeing competitors as competitors.
Yeah, I think when you think about like businesses that are leveraging content as organic marketing, really what it comes down to is the brand and the person. And they're just, it's a brand of one. Nobody's going to outcompete Steve, when it comes to like being me. right? And so I think at the end of the day, there might be some competition and a huge amount of overlap for a particular offer on one dimension, but ultimately, like, there is enough space, say, like in the interview prep space. Like, think about how many people are in interview prep, like right now. High ticket, low ticket, free, contingent on getting an offer, everything in between. I don't think and there are new ones that are popping up all the time and they are still successful. And so even in this like direct competition moment, like we are nowhere near to the point where like it is mature enough of a business for these content businesses where you're like really fighting for the same person.
Yeah, I like to think about how, based on my latest look at the numbers, there are over 100,000 computer science majors graduating every year in just the United States. So, and pretty much almost every single CS major, for the most part, is looking for one of these jobs in tech, for the most part, right? Yeah. So, for the sake of discussion here, like there's more enough for everyone. Plus, there's like room for collaboration. So, for example, I have all of my students pretty much purchase Neat Code's courses.
Yeah.
Because we don't really teach what he does. I think he does a way better job of like just giving the strict data structures and algorithms knowledge in a course, right? We're not, sitting down with someone and teaching them what like a binary search is, right? Sure, we're helping them with leak code, we're coaching them with like the live element there, but we assume that they have that kind of base knowledge before they come to us. Yeah. So there's that room for collaboration where we actually send people to other people to actually work with them. If I knew someone who was looking to get promoted, who was a senior engineer, I would send them to you because I feel like I'm not going to help someone who has 10 years of experience get to like the next level. That's just not what I do. Right. So I think there's a lot of room for like small collaboration where someone could actually purchase like a variety of these products. Even when I've made purchases in the world of YouTube, like I bought Ali Abdaal's course, I bought Captain Sinbad's course, I bought Film Booth's course, I bought Colin and Samir's course, and they're all slightly different angles.
I did 3 of those 4.
Yeah.
So
I think, I agree. I think you'll get a lot more out of collaboration over competition. Tell me about how the business changed over time. Because, or actually, before we take a step there, you mentioned how a lot of people in your kind of like the higher level corporate area don't want to create content because it is a huge thing for a long time. It's a massive grind. It's a massive mental lift, too. If you don't know anything about editing, filming, speaking, writing, graphic design, social media, it's almost impossible to build a brand.
Yeah.
So why did you even want to do it in the first place? What was your logic there?
It all started with like value. And so, just in like a core person, like of who I am, I really believe in like sending the ladder back down and helping other people out. And that energizes me. You want to think about like the things that energize you versus drain you. So, when you're able to give people advice or knowledge and it turns out to be useful for them, like that keeps me going. And so, I knew that I had some stuff to say and I knew nobody was saying it. And so I just needed to find a way to like bridge the gap there between the people that could hear, that would benefit from hearing my message and my content and like me just talking. Right. And so like the internet is a great place. It turns out like, I my first video that I ever made was 4 minutes long or 5 minutes long. It's so cringy. I tried so hard. I didn't know anything about editing. That video probably took me about 100 hours.
100 hours?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like I shot it and then I reshot it and then I'm like, okay, I guess I need video editing. So I tried to do it in iMovie and I'm like, okay, well now I need to do it in Premiere. And so I'm like sitting there trying to do tutorials on Premiere and then scrapping it and then like trying to do it again and then reshooting it and then, trying to add B-roll and not like realizing that like I'm going to, I have to get like a subscription to go get B-roll and all of this stuff. And so, yeah, it like easily took me 100 hours to do it, but I had the time at that moment. And so I think about, there's this wonderful pep talk if you want to go get motivated from Ira Glass. He's from This American Life and NPR. But basically, whenever you want to do a creative thing, like you typically have really good taste, right? So I watched a lot of YouTube and I knew that, there was like a bunch of great videos that were out there. And I was thinking to myself, man, if I could make something like that That would be really great. That would be reward enough. And so Ira's talking about this delta between your taste and then what you're able to create. And if you put in the reps and you continue to make content or art or whatever it is you're doing, that gap slowly closes. I've been making videos for 4 years. You've been doing it for 5. I still can't do the type of video that I want to do. And so, I think there's a sort of challenge that's there where it's like, okay, well, it's actually kind of fun to be a beginner again and to learn about some stuff. And so we all have these seasons when it comes to creating content. Sometimes it's really easy, and sometimes you put yourself on a crazy schedule and it's the last thing that you want to do. And so, I think just really understanding why you want to do this stuff and then making sure that it's valuable and there's some stuff that you want to say that you're going to say. That's the stuff that sort of allows me to continue to make content over the last 4 years. And hopefully, we can get to 10 or 20 years. I would just like to make content for the rest of my life.
So do you see yourself more as a creator or a business person?
It's a good question. I think ultimately, so we had talked about it before, I was a creative writing major. I see myself as a content person. I won't say creator, because you can also create a business. Ultimately, you want to, I think I have some things to say, right? And I would like to say them. And I think that's my business now, is saying those things. At the end of the day, though, you need to leverage that and turn it into something where you can make a living and make some money off of it. And so it's just like that video editing or creating a YouTuber thing. It's I didn't know anything about business other than being able to read, a quarterly report, at Amazon, a corporate quarterly report. I knew how to read one of those, but I didn't know anything about running a business. And so that was good. It was just cool. There's another set of things to learn and be a beginner at.
Yeah, when I talk to a lot of creators and entrepreneurs, I've noticed that there is a bit of a spectrum where it goes all the way on the left is that pure artistic creator. And then all the way on the right is just literally the faceless business just producing corporate content, right? Just to drive leads. And I've noticed that wherever someone lies on that spectrum, usually what they're not doing is going to actually take them to the next level. Yeah. So for me, as soon as I think it was about a couple of years ago when I really actually realized that I was a business. I don't think I actually realized I was a business, more than 2 years ago. I just thought, hey, I'm a YouTuber, I'm a creator, I'm making all this content in different areas, I'm giving life advice, I'm also vlogging, I'm doing all these different things. But as soon as I niched down and just launched an offer and went all down the business route, everything exploded. And I know a lot of creators who are lifestyle creators who, they're a bit reluctant to go down the business route. They're reluctant to launch an offer to sell a product. And that would actually change their life if they had got over that and literally just understood sales, marketing, and offer creation, literally ran a business. Similarly, there's a lot of business creators out there who are really struggling with or a lot of business people out there who are struggling with, I want more eyeballs, I want more lead gen, I have no clue how to do any of this organic content.
I would love to have a YouTube channel with 65,000 subscribers, but then,
exactly.
Coming from the wrong place.
Yeah, absolutely. So they would benefit more from understanding just the creative side of things. And you see the people who own businesses who are really successful, like Alex Ramosi, I would say, he really understands marketing and social media. And he's able to go fully in that direction. So I find it interesting that how you're more on the creator side of things. Why launch an offer then? Why not just go for views?
I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. No, I'm maybe a little less, pegged to one side or the other. I think, really, once you have these realizations, so hey, I just realized I need to be making YouTube videos. I'm okay, well, I just went all in on that. And then at some point, I recognized when my sponsorship business starting to pick up, I was oh, I am running a business here. I should learn how to do this business stuff. And so it wasn't I have this artistic vision that I need to uphold. And it wasn't oh, I'm going to, try to squeeze out as many dollars as I can from all of my actions and only do the highest leverage things. I just realized there was a need there. And then I just did it. That's the type of person that I am. And I think it served me well in corporate, and I think it served me well now that I'm on my own.
So walk me through the monetization of your brand. You said you started in 2021, so it's been a 4-year journey so far. Walk me through year 1 through 4 and what different monetization levers did you pull and how effective were they up till now?
Sure. First year, I think I made $200 from
Let's
ads.
go.
Like, and it wasn't anything to write home about. Also, I spent many multiples, on equipment and all of this other stuff. So it was a net loss. Also, it was a big sink on my time. But it was super fun, and we did that. So that was year 1. Year 2, that's when the first 5 videos that I had created, they just blew up. And so I was like, if you know the lore of my channel, I had originally called the channel and myself Meta. This was before Facebook had stolen my name. And so I was like, okay, whatever. They've just rebranded as Meta. I'm just going to continue as Meta on YouTube. And nobody could find me. Because if you typed in Meta software engineering, it was just popping up Facebook stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to rebrand. If I could go back in time, I would probably just use my name, even though nobody can pronounce it. But then I went to Upwork and I was like, hey, somebody go and come up with some names for my channel. And, somebody, I was like, oh, a life engineer, I'll do that. Nowadays, you would just use GPT and try to find something. That second year, I think I made about $10,000 from AdSense. I hadn't monetized at that point. And, I realized that I needed to do this rebrand. Like, there's an opportunity here because most people don't start. And so I had already created the content and I was starting to understand it. Work was starting to pick back up. But I made the choice that, that I'm going to go all in. And so that's when I did Ali Abdaal's course. And then I did Ed's course as well during that year. That might have been the year after that. But I was just sort of like going in and really just going all in on all of that stuff. Year 3, I started taking sponsorship money. My first one was with Notion. I know that you did one with Notion as well. So that was actually, one of my largest integrations. That year I started taking sponsorship money. At the tail end of that, I had launched my first offer. So that was a relatively good year. So with all the sponsorship money and that first cohort launch, I made about $250,000
Nice.
while I was still working
Wow.
at Amazon. That was the moment I realized, like, okay, probably because I had basically 10x'd my top line every year. And I was like, well, another 10x is just like let's do it. Like let's not worth this job. And so that was the moment I decided to quit. But it did require like a ton of nudging. There were, I talked with all the creators that I knew and trying to make this decision because like at Amazon, I'd gotten to the point because I was making content, all of that during that time. I actually decided like, okay, well, if I'm going to be making this content, I'm going to try to phone it in at work. So phoning it in at work means like, I just wanted an exceeds rating for that year. So I'm like, as long as I get an exceeds rating, like I can just kind of goof off and, do my own thing. And so I really just decided, I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to do the one thing at work. And I'm just going to make sure that I do it really well. And I just like kill it. And it turns out like, just like focusing on one thing at work turns you into a high performer. So I got like top tier 4 years in a row as a principal engineer at Amazon while I was doing my side hustle because I had just like focused on just one thing at a time, which is like crazy. And so I tell people in my program when I'm working with my clients, like if you have time management issues, just prioritize one thing. If you would like to start a side hustle or you would like to spend a bunch of time doing like interview prep or whatever, just focus at one thing at work. Like literally I did it and it's this weird thing where you become a high performer. Just because I was literally like, how can I like just do like 20 to 30 hours of work so I don't get fired so I can do this YouTube stuff? And it was crazy. I was just like, okay, cool. Well, like, I'm a high performer there and my YouTube stuff is going really well at the same time. So it was like kind of hard to leave because I'd kind of optimized my life and I was doing both. And, I had 2 kids during this time period as well. I have like hobbies and stuff like that. So I'm like, wait a second, I'm actually good with this productivity stuff, So then I decided to circle a date and then leave. turns out I should have just left 2 months later because I would have made several $100,000 like in terms of stock that would come in just because it was like regular. But I was like, I really wanted to just get out and do my own thing. And so, that's my first 4 years.
So speaking of sponsorships and launching your own product, what's the breakdown of the pie right now in terms of your business revenue? How much comes from sponsors? How much comes from your own product?
Yeah.
And also on the Notion note, I didn't know anything about sponsorships. My most viral videos is about Notion.
Yeah.
It's like 300,000 views on Notion. I didn't get sponsored by them at all. Like, now I'm looking back, I made 5 videos for them. Like, I was the first Notion for computer science video out there that went viral like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
What the hell?
I literally watched your video when I got that sponsorship from Notion because I wanted to see like what a good integration looked like. So I was like inspecting your videos.
Yeah, I wish I got paid for that because I literally just made it for free. So
we'll talk. I can connect you with some.
Nice. Yeah, that'd be super helpful. I thought that they don't do sponsorships as much recently because I haven't seen a lot of them. I know like probably 3 to 5 years ago, especially with Ali Abdaal, they used to do a lot, but are they just done with Notion or Spotify?
They're timing it with their product releases.
Okay. Yeah. Got it. Makes sense.
Yeah, but in terms of the pie, I struggle with this because sometimes I'm like, okay, well, the coaching business is the main thing. Everything else is just distribution. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, the sponsorship money, because it comes in fits and spurts, so they might all come in at once. Like now is one of these times where like 6 sponsors just hit me up. And, they're all 5 figures. And so I'm like, they're like, hey, can you do like, how many videos can you do? Like, can you guarantee a video, in 2 weeks? And I'm like, well, if the price is right. And I'm like, yes, the price is right. Like, let's do it. And they all came in all at once. And so then I'm like, well, maybe I've been neglecting this sponsorship thing for too long. Right. And then I have another project as well. I'm writing a book. And so I've been doing that for the past year. I'm trying to hit a home run there. And so part of me is like, well, maybe your focus is like, why are you focusing on all the sponsorship stuff and the coaching stuff when you could hit a home run with the book? My current struggle right now is focus, or at least just knowing what is the one thing that I want to prioritize and then have everything else, feed into that. There was also a business that I started and then failed in that time period as well. So, I think that was the biggest like surprise to me, which is like, I thought that after I quit my job, I had infinite time. And if you just like quit your job and then just say yes to everything, all of that free time goes away so fast. So you asked about the breakdown of the income right now. I would say at this moment, lowish to mid 6 figures on the coaching stuff, and then low 6 figures on the sponsorship. We'll see how the year progresses. And then, in the like the 5 digits for AdSense. And then I have the newsletter. The newsletter is free, but I charge for the archive. So basically, there's like 2 weeks where the latest newsletter is free for everybody if you're subscribed. And that's also bringing in 5 figures as well.
Awesome. All right, quick break. If you're trying to leave the 9 to 5 and build a business, this book has to be on your desk. $100 Million Money Models by Alex Hormozi. The whole $100 Million series genuinely changed the game for me. It helped me nail offer structure, pricing, and packaging, and how to pick models that actually scale, not just sound good on paper. I credit this series to helping me build $1 million business in my 20s after leaving my corporate job. Now here's the fun part. I bought 200 copies to give away to listeners who want to start or level up their business. Here's how to get yours. You need to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. An honest review, you can say whatever you want, screenshot it, and just email the screenshot to reviews@manazir.org. We'll then send you a link to claim a free copy. We cover the cost of the book, you just cover shipping. That's it. If you want the ultimate resource to get serious about your offer and revenue model, this is it. So just leave a review, screenshot it, and email us. There are only 200 copies available, so do this as fast as possible. All right, back to the episode. Something I'm really surprised about is how lucrative your sponsors are. And maybe this is just a little bit of an admission that I don't know how to do sponsorships well, even after taking Colin and Samir's course, because they wouldn't pay me more than a few $1,000s, which maybe it's just the reach. Obviously, your channel has a lot more reach than me. I think another aspect to it is your audience is much older and has a greater purchasing power, so they're willing to dish out more there. But just based on my results, early results of sponsors, the fact that I could just not get more than a few $1,000s. And after launching my own product, which was in the exact same niche as my channel, where I could make a greater impact for the same kind of person, I was able to do much, much more. I usually recommend that people go more towards building their own product rather than going for sponsors. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think demographics plays a big part in it. One thing about the demographics of my channel is most of it is in America. Most of my following is in America. If it's not, then it's North America and Western Europe. And, I'd say like 50% of that or more is in those two continents. There are a ton of YouTubers that they basically are Indian, and like if you're a big Indian YouTuber, like it doesn't take very much to get big. But it also turns out that the ad rates are relatively low, right?
Yeah, one of my things is that I have a large Indian following, not because I've said anything or done anything related to India. I'm just brown.
Yeah.
So I just have like a large Indian following, but that probably does actually hurt me when it comes to sponsorship rates as well.
Yeah. The other thing that you said I completely agree with is basically like no sponsor is a charity. Like it's quid pro quo. It's like, hey, I'm going to give you money. Like if they're going to give you $5,000, they're expecting to make on the order of $5,000 back, right? Or more. And so it's just so much more efficient if you are the sponsor. Like why you can just cut out the middleman and then just like promote your own stuff. What I will say though is, I think of your following on YouTube or whatever platform, they think of that as distribution. And so, yeah, come up with your own offer. Your offer is going to do relatively well if you've established a base and you have broad distribution. But I think the challenge that I've had is just incremental on top of that. So my first couple of launches were like really great. And I was like, that's why it's like in such a rush to leave Amazon. But it started to dry up. Like my third launch was really bad. What I learned is that there's actually seasonality in all of this stuff. Summer is the low period. And then as you go into the end of Q3 and into Q4, that's the high period again. And so I didn't even know that, right? And so, I did one of my launches and I'm like, oh, I only signed up, 20 people or whatever. And I was like, should I just cancel this like cohort? Like I've made a terrible mistake. And it really forced me to evolve the business a little bit. And so what I would say is like, do your offer, but and you likely have success if you have built-in distribution, but the incremental after that is still going to take some amount of work as well.
I agree. I think building your own offer is significantly more work. It's, when it comes to a sponsor, they're doing everything for you. You just have to literally point your audience towards them, which is why they give you a 10 to 20% cut of whatever they bring in. Usually it's not going to be anything significant. And when you build your own offer, you get 100%, but you also have to do 100% of the work, right? So what's funny is that you mentioned how the summer is a low period for you. The summer is a high period for me, funny enough.
Because everybody wants an internship. Right?
Exactly, right? It's interesting how it's kind of like inverse there, where for me, my audience, again, is relatively young. They're all in school, so they're all busy during the school year.
Yeah.
And then it's the summer when, one, all the internships open up for next summer, so that's what they want to work on it. And two, they're all just sitting there feeling bad that their friends are doing internships and they're not.
Yeah.
So then they come to us and they're like, hey, I have 2 months.
Do you only do internships or do you do like first offers?
We do first offers too.
Yeah. So they graduate.
Exactly, right? They graduate and they're like, okay, I don't have a job.
Yeah.
I'm screwed, right? Yeah. Or they're like, okay, I know new grad jobs open up in the fall. I need a job. I'm going to come to you guys, right? So that's why the summer is the best for them to work with us, but also in terms of just interest in the company. For us, our low periods are finals. So no one wants to decide on anything during finals. It'll be like, hey, I'm too busy with finals. I'm not going to talk to you guys. I'm not going to work with you guys. Christmas is low. Everyone's on vacation with their family. I think Christmas is low for almost all businesses.
Yeah.
Unless you're in retail.
Well, I mean, I came from Amazon, but the reInvent is also during December. But I think the big thing is like most people do performance reviews at the beginning of the year, right? And so going into Q4 is like the busiest season for I didn't even think that was the case for like streaming live sports. I was like, oh, okay, well, it must not be like retail. No, actually, like all of the NFL is going on, NBA is going on, Premier League is going on. Like it all happens in Q4, and then the performance reviews happen. And then if there's not a good outcome in performance reviews, that's when people are like, okay, maybe I need some help.
Absolutely. So one thing I'm curious about is you spent several years working full-time as a principal at Amazon while launching this 6-7 figure business on the back end of it. And you're also, you're a family man. You're not just, 21, just sitting there in your bedroom, right? So what was your daily routine to actually create content on the side, run a business on the side, while also getting great reports in your day job while also managing a family?
Yeah. No, so I think the bar is on the floor when it comes to performance. I think that most people, if you ask them like, hey, do you have any free time? They would just say no. And you'd be like, okay, cool. And then if you gave them an extra hour, you just be like, okay, you have a 25-hour day, right? They would just squander it. It would actually not make any difference to their quality of life. If you gave them like 30 hours, they would just like literally the time would just expand to fit what you have. Right? And so once I made that discovery, I was like, oh, okay, cool. If you just focus for an hour or 2 hours every day, like you will zoom past everybody. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Like even at a high performance place like Amazon, like you have like just doing 2 hours on like one thing. The average knowledge worker like literally checks their email every 6 minutes. Like they're going fishing. They're looking for things to take their attention. And you have a phone and you could just sit there and scroll or like watch YouTube videos. And so in this like really, really distracted world, if you can just literally focus, you will just blow past everybody. The other observation that I made was essentially like there is I call it my caviar hours, but basically, you have energy over the course of the day. It's not evenly distributed. And so for me, I'm a morning person. I used to be when I was younger. I used to be a night person. But, those first couple hours in the morning, like those are my unstoppable hours. It's just like if you literally just turn off your phone and Slack and Reddit and YouTube and Instagram and everything, and just for those 2 hours do the thing that would be the highest leverage thing for you, then you can go into the office and then cool, you have to go to a status meeting. Like you don't need like like a version of Steve during a meeting. You can have like the B or C low energy version. Like it's going to be the same outcome, right? And so ultimately, if you just like understand where your energy level is and then just realize that most people are just crazy distracted, and literally if you just gave them extra time, it wouldn't make a difference. You do have the time. You have the time to do everything. I think, no, like all of these time constrained people, if you were like, hey, okay, well, if you don't have enough time, like, do you have enough time to wipe your butt? It's like, yeah, you have enough time to wipe your butt, right? Okay, well, if it's important enough for you, then you do have time. And so, like, what are your priorities? If you literally got the time breakdown of what people do over the course of a day, and you just tracked it out, like, most people aren't doing anything that matters. They literally aren't. So I have a term, trying to make it a thing. It's called a 0 day. It's not like a vulnerability, but basically like a 0 day is a day that if it never existed, like if you never got out of bed, if you just stayed in bed for that day, nobody would notice. And I think most people in corporate or wherever they work, like most days are 0 days. And it's not because they're lazy, but because like, there's crunch time at work where you really need to put in a bunch of effort. And then there's like these lull periods, put in the extra effort during the times when you're needed to go. But then like, you're working a salary. And so there are going to be these and so during those days, people are just kind of fishing their email or just waiting for something urgent to occur. And if you just really ask them like, hey, if this day never happened, would anybody in the entire universe notice? And the answer is like, no, nobody would actually notice. And so if you can just transform a 0 day into a 1 hour or 2 hours of work day for the things that are important for you, you have enough time to do everything that you want to.
The way I did it was, I mean, I guess it's different between us because I didn't have like, family or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But the way I kind of handled it was I would, like I said earlier, I would wake up at maybe 6:30 or 7 a.m. The daily stand-up was at 9:05. So I had to be in my seat by 9:05 when the team all hands shows up and everyone's faces.
That's really hard for developers. 9:05 might as well be 4 in the morning.
Yeah, 9:05 is early for a lot of people. But for me, I was a bit of an early person always. So I was up by 6:30, and I got ready, made my coffee. I had a good 90 minutes of focus time before work even started and the daily stand-up happened. So I would try to utilize that. That was gold to me, honestly.
Yeah.
It was a 90-minute block of time before I had to show my face, be anywhere. And that was some of the best focus time I had. So I would write scripts. I would review edits. I spent months in that 90 minutes. And then I would utilize my lunch break. I would kind of like take slightly extra long lunch breaks. Honestly, like you said, during work, I'm not ashamed to admit that there were times where I just did my stuff. I didn't really have that much to do. So I would just go into the call room and work on YouTube.
Yeah.
I would literally start drafting a script or review an edit. I would do a call with a team member here and there, casually, because again, you're on a salary. No one's timing your exact hours. Sure, they expect you to be there for around 8 hours a day, but there's obviously increases and decreases to that. So I filled in those gaps. Then basically every single day after work, I would spend at least 1 or 2 hours working on YouTube, filming. I would attend coaching calls for the programs I was in as well. Then on the weekend, I would probably devote at least 4 to 6 hours on Saturday and 4 to 6 hours on Sunday working on the content and business, especially when I started to take it more seriously over the past 2 years before I quit.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my approach. What did I sacrifice from that? One, my social life was kind of low. Like I didn't really have many friends at the time. I was kind of grinding all the time. That's one. Two, the average American spends between 3 and 6 hours a day consuming content, whether that's on social media, watching TV, watching the news. I cut out almost that entirely. The only content I would consume was like educational YouTube videos on business and podcasts. And I would listen to audiobooks occasionally while I was doing other things. So I cut that out entirely as well. So those are kind of the ways I did it, right? It's like if you cut those things that are kind of useless, you can find the time no matter who you are.
Yeah. And I don't want to characterize it like, I was literally able to. So I did have to make some choices. I played a lot of FIFA. And so I had to cut FIFA out, which was kind of sad. I love sports. I love watching sports, which is why, my job was great. I had to cut NFL out of my life. I'm a big college football guy, so Huskies are going to Camp Randall this year. I was thinking about going, but, so I still have my season tickets there, but I had to make some pretty large decisions and, and so, yeah, you just need to prioritize, right? And so, at the end of the day, like I can just watch NFL highlights, and that's enough, and just enough so that I can do my fantasy team. But I'd rather just be a big YouTuber, right? Like, yeah, that's an easy choice. It is a little sad because, like, I just really love it, but you just can't do everything in life, right?
You can't do everything. Actually, Ali Abdaal posted a video recently, I don't know if you saw it, where he made the spreadsheet where he actually listed out what the average person does. And even there was a negative balance somehow. It was like there was literally no time. There was no time to add anything. So no wonder people feel stressed and feel like they're overworked. It's because they spend all of their time just maintaining their life. Yeah. I think another thing I forgot to mention is the average person spends a hell of a lot of time cooking and cleaning and eating. Yeah. So most people spend several hours a day just preparing their meals and eating as well, and cleaning up and cooking. So I had already, it wasn't super healthy, but I was eating like kind of like Chipotle all the time.
Yeah.
Chipotle hack, kind of like very Hormozy. I had a cleaner coming in. I was just spending a lot of my money on that. So those are the kind of ways I did it. But I agree, sacrifices need to be made. I think most people, if you ask them, do you want to be a big YouTuber or do you want to watch NFL? I think most people would be like, even if I love NFL, I think I would rather have a big brand and follow my passion there.
And I did the same thing for outsourcing stuff. It's just arbitrage. It's just like, okay, you can clean your house or, you can go and work on your business. Which one is high leverage? I think when you come from, especially Asian family, like, there's this like it just pains you to open your wallet up to do things like that you could do at home. It's like you take a Chinese person and you're like, what type of food do they actually like? Oh, they actually like an omelet with tomato. But they're not going to go to a restaurant and order the thing that they want. Like they're at a restaurant, so they're going to like order something else. Or they'll stand in line to get a free t-shirt. Do they need a free t-shirt? No. Or like, hey, you have to pay a cleaner. So suppose you have to pay a cleaner like $200 to come to your house. Nothing in business costs $200. Like everything is just like super expensive, right? And so like, or you could be making $2,000 like with the, by launching a new thing. And so like, it's just that math. It's like, it's not logical. It's just emotional.
Yeah.
So like most of it is psychology.
I clearly agree. I don't know if you heard this, but I think Hormozi talked about how there was a time, maybe 20 years ago, where this fast food joint opened up a free bucket of chicken. And the line was hours. People were waiting hours to get a free bucket of chicken, which costs maybe $10. Right? They valued their time so little that it was below minimum wage.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that arbitrage opportunity is incredible. Yeah. I think it's also, a lot of people will tell me when I tell them, hey, you should be outsourcing pretty much all of your life maintenance things. They'll say, yeah, but I don't have, my side hustle isn't, producing $100, $200 an hour yet. Yeah. So I should continue doing these things. And then when I can actually see that, then I'll do it. But you have to have faith that once you actually have time, you'll be able to get there. You have to trust yourself that you can make this work and it will be worth it in the end.
I think it's like, you need to bet on yourself. So think about any startup that's taking money. Like you put the money in, the idea is that you're going to get outsized return on that. They don't do this thing where it's like, okay, well, the startup is only going to grow as much as incoming revenue at that moment. Like there's no need to put that constraint there, but we do that for ourselves. I'm a part of a bunch of YouTube groups. They'll be like, okay, well, whatever AdSense money I have is my budget for equipment. And I'm just like, why are you unnaturally? Because it makes sense in their head. They're doing this accounting, right? And so, I think at the end of the day, like you need to bet on yourself. I used to have a personal assistant here, and like a house manager. So like all the laundry and then cleaners and then lawn people and then, and nannies and stuff like that. I have a virtual assistant, so I don't check my email. She checks my email for me. She pays all of my bills. She manages my calendar. We just hop on a call every morning, and then she tells me what I'm doing for that day. That's who you scheduled with. It's from this book, Dan Martell, Buy Back Your Time. Yeah, I thought it was great. And I was just like, okay, cool. So now your time is freed up. And then there's actually a wonderful thing, which is like, now you're obligated to go and do some stuff. Now it's like you spent all the money to clear out your time. And now you actually have a time budget. And so that's the thing you don't want to waste. That's the thing where you're just like, hey, like this is precious. And so once you've actually spent the real money to get back this sort of like virtual currency, which is your focus, there's accountability there. I think that's shameful to waste that time. Those are the poker chips that you purchased, right? So you like took the cash and then you bought the poker chips and now you spend the poker chips. But like, why wouldn't you invest in the startup that is yourself? Like you're the only person that you can like absolutely count on, right?
Absolutely. Another line that a lot of people tell me is, oh, if I had a bunch of free time, I would just squander it by watching TV.
Yeah.
And honestly, honest to God, if that's your opinion, you're never going to be successful in business. that's
no business person says that.
Yeah, no person who's actually making it says, oh, if I had an extra 10 hours a week, I would just scroll for 10 more hours.
Yeah.
So I think that's a bit of a exposure there. Another question I have is, let's say you're talking to someone who's professional like you. Maybe they're a doctor, they're an engineer, they're a lawyer, they're an accountant, and they're middle of their career, they're maybe mid-30s or even 40s, and their desire is to kind of do what you did. So they want to build a brand, maybe teaching already what they know, and then build a business off of it such that they can leave their job, have the fun, freedom, flexibility that all of us want.
Yeah.
What is those first 3 or 4 steps you'd recommend they do? Which platform? Do they launch an offer immediately? What's the playbook nowadays?
I used to think that like when kids were like, hey, I want to be a streamer or a YouTuber when I grow up, I thought that was the stupidest thing in the entire world. And now it's like, it's smart. It's so smart because what you're doing is you're building distribution and a following. And then you can figure out your business after the fact, like once you have that distribution. And so the question becomes like, how do you get big, right? And then you can sort of figure out your offer afterwards. It just starts with value. And so what I did, and I do this for most of my scripts, I basically take the 21-year-old version of Steve, and that's who I'm talking to, right? Or the 30-year-old version of Steve, right? When I was sort of mid-career. And I'm just like, what would have been so helpful to tell that person, assuming that person would actually listen to me, like what would be an outsized piece of advice or value or like a way to think about the world that would be helpful. And I just make that content because I know there's a version of me that's out there that's just kind of looking for that. And so, a lot of times people will do this exercise. I know Ed asked you to do, but basically like, what's the comment that you want to see in your video? So I'll tell you what mine is. And it's just recently happened a couple of times with my last video. It's just basically like, I want people to say, this content is gold. Like those specific words. This is gold. But any indication that this was like useful for them, like that's the emotion that I would like to elicit. And if you just give that stuff out into the world, it is just inevitable that you will get big. So if you're an accountant or a plumber or whoever, like if you're a plumber, more than likely you started your own business. Maybe, you're working in the plumbing, like some really large corporation, but ultimately like most of the people are a small business. Whenever you have a small business and you have a bunch of experience, like there's just like 30 things that you wish you knew, right? Just make that content that would be useful. Don't hide anything. Don't be like, well, this is my best stuff, and so I'm going to give them like the B grade version of it, and then if they pay for the stuff, they'll get the A grade. Just give your best stuff out. Because Ali says this, like the average subscriber watches like 1.5 videos of yours. And so you can just like repeat yourself, like literally repeat yourself and just give that content out. And as you get better at making content, you'll get more of a following, and then the discovery gets better, and then it turns into this virtuous cycle. But it all starts with just giving. And I think most people are like, well, I don't have anything to say. Like nothing is useful. And it just comes from this curse of knowledge, right? Like when you understand something, it no longer becomes difficult. And so, if you're like mid or late career like me, and you're like, okay, well, I don't have anything to tell anybody. You do. It's all just stuck up in here. You've forgotten what it was like to not know all of these things. And so, like for you, you got an internship and you got a job, and then you made content because like you still remembered what it was like on the other side. Like that was fresh. When I make content about early career stuff, I have to think about like the year 2006 and what the world is like, which I don't know, you're probably in diapers at the time, but like, it's difficult for me to do that. It's very difficult to put yourself into the shoes of who you were 20 years ago. But if you're able to do that, then I think, the gold comes out.
What does your team look like right now? And what are some of the best early hires you can make in a content creation / coaching business like yours?
Yeah. I think the most critical hire is my virtual assistant. So like I said, she just reads my emails and does my scheduling and pays my bills. And, I'm like, hey, this person needs an invoice, send them an invoice. That's the first and foremost stuff. Like just get a virtual assistant. You can get one for a very reasonable amount of money, offshore. And so that's the key. Like that's the thing that really allows me to scale.
How did you find your virtual assistant? What's their rate per month? How have you trained them? What's the alpha here?
So I found a headhunter in the Philippines through some networking. So, basically,
is it Shepherd or a different one?
I use Shepherd for my social media manager, which we'll get to. This person is, some Filipino woman. I give her $1,000, and then I give her a job description, and then her job is to get me like 10, 15, 20 candidates. She was like, okay, well, what's your budget? Right. And so I was like, like, how does $5 an hour sound? And then, so at that level, the quality of the candidate wasn't really good. And so, I was like, okay, well, I think for everybody, just like interview a bunch of people. And so I was like, okay, well, if we up the rate, like what happens. And then the quality of the people that I was interviewing went up. I eventually hired somebody that it was an operations manager for like a publisher. So she's just, luckily she knew about content and all of this other stuff, but she can do all of the assistant stuff she was able to do really easily. She's like $10 an hour, something like that, which is, I got $10 an hour for her, offloading all of this stuff. That was the critical hire. I hired a social media manager through Shepherd. They've just rebranded into Somewhere. It's a little nicer because when, my lady, I tried to hire a video editor through her and I got mixed results. But with Somewhere, basically, like if it doesn't work out within 6 months, they'll just continue to find you a replacement until it does. The price point's a little higher. I think it was like, some percentage of how much you would pay.
30% annually, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. Which at the end of the day is, it's not that much when you're outsourcing to Philippines or Latin America. Social media manager, her job is, she just left the one that I had, so I'm replacing her. But her job is to just make sure that all of my content, she creates the content, she does editing for short form. For me, like I really care about the quality of my writing, so I'm trying to get, I'm really focusing on LinkedIn, and so I'm like, okay, well, it has to be in my voice and all this other stuff. She was having problems, replicating it, and so we got to this workflow where basically I'm like, okay, well, write 50 posts in my voice, and then I'm gonna, based off of like what other creators in my niche are talking about, based off of all of my prior content. And then I would go through and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I can get 5 to 7 posts out of this. And then we can also repurpose, all of my other stuff. And, if it's a short sort of message, I can make it medium or large, or like we can turn this into an infographic. And so like her job was to make sure that the content was just scheduled out indefinitely. Right. And so I didn't have to think about a lot of that stuff. Now that she's left and I'm on my own and I'm trying to replace it, I'm like, oh my God, this is the exact reason why I had outsourced it. So, social media manager, highly recommended. I think there are a lot of people that they're kind of like associates. So they would be responsible for creating a bunch of stuff. The people that I tried to hire, that I'm looking for are like strategic. So I'm like, hey, here's all of my lines of business and income streams. Here's my existing footprint. Like, let's develop a strategy on top of just tactically pumping out a bunch of content.
What does your day in the life look like nowadays? And how has that changed over the past few years? Something I noticed is you said you're 42. You look like you're 28.
Thanks.
I think, honestly, if I just looked at you in the street, I would think you were late 20s, maybe early 30s.
Yeah.
So you look 10 to 15 years younger than you are, which is incredible.
Awesome.
I don't know if it has to be partly genetics, but also you must have a really good routine. I can tell you go to the gym as well. So what's your day in the life and what's your health and fitness routine nowadays?
Yeah, I mean, it's not anything special. I wake up relatively early, come into the office. I'm here until 4 or 5 or 6. Most of the time I try to bring my lunch. I didn't today, so I have to go and find something. But I'm just usually here grinding. When I get home, it's my job to, with the kids. And so, help feed them, get them ready for bed. And then, let's see, I work out, 3 times a week. I like powerlifting, so I'm just lifting a bunch of weights. Every once in a while, I'll sneak away and play a round of golf. It's nice when you're your own boss. You can do whatever you want to. I use like a combination, like moisturizer, like sunblock, every morning, and it's nothing special. Like it's like if you saw what I did, you would just be like, okay, well, it's just basically like going into the office, but it's like now it's just my office here,
Yeah. What's interesting is that like you said, your like health and wellness routine isn't kind of any insane Brian Johnson something. It's like a very normal routine. But what's interesting is, see, I do like, all the normal stuff as well. but you don't see a difference when everyone else is 20s and you're also 20. Right? Like people can be drinking 8 times a week and, sleeping 2 hours a night, and they basically look the same as you when you're 22 or 23.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here. I feel like the change actually happens over decades, right? It's 30s, 40s, 50s. You start to see a massive divergence between people who take care of themselves, prioritize their health and wellness and routine compared to people who don't.
Yeah.
I remember I was in an Uber once and this lady picked us up and I thought she was like 50 or something. And she goes, no, I'm 30. Like I'm around the same age as you. I was like, what? You're 30? I thought you were 50. So just abuse shows up over time.
Yeah. I had some like carpal tunnel ulnar stuff, in my 30s. And it was just because I didn't care about ergonomics, I was like an otter, do it like this, or like my keyboard was up here. And it's that stuff over time that accumulates. If you eat bad, it doesn't matter in your 20s, but then it catches up to you and it accumulates in your 30s and 40s and beyond that. But also, I've really prioritized health recently because, there's just unhealthy people around me. Like, my mother-in-law is like disabled. My mom like has mobility issues now, like health issues with my kids. My dog has like a tumor. And so like I have to go and do all of that stuff. And like, how can I like learn to be grateful about the body that I have without like having a health incident? Right? Can you learn a lesson through somebody else? Like that's the cheapest way to learn a lesson. I don't want to like ruin my body and then have to get myself out of a hole. And like only because something has happened, am I actually grateful for what I have, right? And so I'm just always trying to see if I can't learn a lesson when bad things happen to other people within my life. But at the end of the day, like I have to work out at night, which is not optimal for me, So like, 10 at night, I'm like trying to lift heavy weights and like I'm just done with the day. And so, but I know I have to do it because I think ultimately, if you're watching this podcast, you've won the Galactic lottery. You're alive, you're a human, you speak English, you understand what I'm saying right now. You're thinking about launching a business or you're in tech. Like life's good. Like AI is around and like it's never just been a better time to launch a business, and so you want to hold on to that, at the end of the day. I really think that, if you're somebody with some amount of experience and thinking about starting a business, the internet has not yet unfolded completely. People aren't going to go to college and learn a vocation. And, my mom worked at Boeing for a long time. There are these Boeing lifers. They just started at one company and they worked there for their entire life. Like, that's not the world that we're going to live in. What's going to happen is you're going to find somebody that you resonate with if you're young online. You're going to be like, that guy lives a life that I would like. And you're going to be like, well, how can I be like that person? And all you have to do is have an offer that's just like, hey, I'll teach you how to have my life. And, we'll just do a bunch of shortcuts. You don't have to go and explore all these dead ends. You can learn a lesson through me. The person that's receiving that advice is going to learn something valuable because they've saved all of these years. You are going to benefit from that because you can scale over the internet. And like, it's just much more efficient than like going to a state school and getting a degree and then like starting off as an associate and doing all of that other stuff. Like, I think that type of business makes a ton of sense. And it hasn't even started yet, really.
What's next for you? What should people look forward to content business-wise?
Yeah, I'm writing a book. Don't write a book if you don't have like a ton of free time or it's been a grind. The way that I think about it is distribution is paramount when it comes to writing a book. So I thought that if you wrote a good book, it would just sell really well. No, it turns out like if you have big distribution and you write a mid book, like it will do okay. If you write a bad book, it will still do okay. But if you have like distribution, so you have like a following and you write a really killer book, like that's when you're multiplying two large numbers together. As much as I'd like to get this book done, like I just really am obsessing over quality. which is why it's just taken, more than a year to get it out. So I'm working on that. What I really want to do, so I want to basically do a conference for principal engineers or people that aspire to be principal engineers, and have them fly into Seattle area where we're at, and just have like a bunch of really awesome speakers, and then it'll be the sum of, greater than the sum of the participants that are there. So that's the idea that I'm kicking around. I need another line of business, like I need a hole in my head, but maybe I'll try to get really big on YouTube and just start posting again every week. Maybe I'll start a podcast. I've already shot a couple of episodes for my podcast, but I don't see those as like gigantic leaps from what I'm already doing. And so I have to take stock and figure out like whether I should just be maximizing what I already have, or starting new things. And so that's the perpetual choice that you need to make as an entrepreneur.
Awesome. Thanks for doing this, man. Had a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thank you.
That's today's episode of Liftoff. Thank you so much for watching. Now, if you want early access to every single one of these episodes, head over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or any other podcast app of choice and follow Liftoff with Aman Manazir. That's right, you can listen to every episode early on the podcast apps before they get released on YouTube. So make sure to go over and follow on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, turn on notifications, or check the links in the description. And finally, always remember, the night is darkest before the dawn. I'll see you in the next one.